All right, let's get started. Good afternoon and welcome to Front Row with the faculty at St. Joseph's College of Maine. My name is Joanne Bean. I'm the Vice President and Chief Advancement Officer here at the college, and I welcome all of you to this exciting series. Front Row with the faculty is really a very timely subject this afternoon. We're going to be hearing from one of our adjunct faculty members, and I'm happy to introduce Shanna in just a minute. Her subject is servant leadership, and she has an incredible amount of knowledge in their senior living community, and I'll tell you all about that. First of all, let me just share some points about this afternoon. This is a Zoom function. There is a chat function on your Zoom channel there, and that chat function is where we hope you might address some questions. If you're comfortable in typing in questions, we will entertain all those questions at the end of the presentation. The presentation will be about 20 or 30 minutes, and then we will address questions as they come in. There's also a microphone that either you can turn off or we will turn off for you. We find that during the presentation, it's nice not to have that background noise. So we'll be doing that, and I want to introduce some colleagues that are helping with this event. So Stephanie Filer is our Director of Alumni Relations, and Ashley Maloney is our Development Officer, and our Chief Brand Officer is Oliver Griswold. And so all of us are here for you today. This will be taped. It is being taped, and it'll be featured on our website at a later time. So without further ado, please let me introduce Shanna Eckberg. Shanna is a graduate of St. Joseph's College, both an undergraduate baccalaureate degree and a master's degree. She's a licensed nursing home administrator in both Wisconsin and Minnesota. She's coming today from Minnesota, so we're excited to have that distance participation from our online adjunct faculty member. She happens to be a chief operating officer as well. This chief operating officer is a multi-state not-for-profit living provider, senior living provider, for which she manages and operates. She has been employed in senior living for over 20 years. She serves also as an adjunct instructor for the University of Minnesota, Crookston, and the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. So what Shanna has also enjoyed doing over the years is mentoring interns and helping healthcare administrators really understand the importance of leadership development. She right now is in pursuit of a doctorate in health administration, and this special emphasis that she holds dear to her heart is leadership development. And we're excited to have her leadership with us this afternoon to talk to us about all that she has experienced in this pandemic. She has created and she has led organizations in subject matter experts on COVID-19 vaccine, the management of COVID-19, and she certainly has experienced firsthand what this has done to our senior population. So as a member of the American College of Healthcare Executives, we are really, really fortunate to have Shanna on our faculty and certainly as a part of this program this afternoon. So Shanna, please go right ahead, and looking forward to your talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very kind. I appreciate that a lot. And I'm really excited to be here and to talk about this topic. So I just wanted to discuss, hey, here's what we're going to be covering today. Here's an overview. Who am I? What is servant leadership? I work for American Baptist Homes of the Midwest, so I want to make sure that I just give you a tiny bit of background of that organization. I want to share some stories from our team members, ways that they have exhibited servant leadership. I also want to share some technologies that we've embraced that also helps us serve our seniors and their loved ones. I want to show that even though we faced and are still facing this pandemic, I want to show how we still measure our success, how we're meeting our residents' needs. I also want to just talk briefly about, our areas of growth and also the wellness of our residents and team members during this time. So that's going to be what we'll cover today. And Joanne, you did awesome. Thank you so much for covering who I am. I'm just gonna flip through that. So American Baptist Homes of the Midwest. So our organization is not for profit. We have been around for over 80 years. We specifically focus in senior living. We serve over 1,500 residents and members. We also have a team of about 1,300 staff. What's really neat is that we do offer diverse services to seniors. We do have a small branch of our organization that helps members with developmental disabilities, and we also have some HUD housing. So COVID for us crept into our communities in April. We did have some outbreaks in all of them. However, the scope of the pandemic really varied by location. Through this time, it was pretty amazing. Our leaders, our team, we held strong. We didn't see any transitions in administrators, at all. And we continue to focus on keeping COVID-19 out of our building. So with the vaccine being given, we're kind of feeling like, hey, we can start dabbling a little bit more in opening up for visitation, those types of things. So that's ABHM quickly. So what is servant leadership? I look to Ken Blanchard for his definition. He's well known and I love it. He says leaders assume a traditional role. They set the vision, direction, strategy for the organization. And then after that's done, really they turn the organizational pyramid upside down so that they are serving their teams of people who serve the customer, so that we make sure that we're helping them succeed, giving them some power to make decisions and really do what's right. So the stories that I'm going to share briefly are all administrator stories. And I chose a few of them simply because we are spread across a few states. So I chose one in Iowa, one in South Dakota, and Colorado to just give a perspective, just a broad spectrum and perspective of what everybody faced. All right, so this first statement comes from Carrie Escalante. She is a nursing home administrator in Colorado. So her community that she worked at is in downtown Denver. We serve over 50% of our residents. We serve veterans. There's about 50% of our residents that are veterans there. So that's really a fun, diverse group. So her quote is, servant leadership means willingness to listen, support, communicate, and train employees in a way that promotes success for the team. It's also a reverse of the top-down hierarchy model. All employees have to feel empowered to make decisions, problem solve, and know that it's okay to make a mistake. So Kiri also shared with me that early on, so their building was hit early on with the pandemic, like March, April. And during this time, we had many staff get sick, so we were bare bones for staffing. And so one thing that she was doing as the administrator, she was the only housekeeper on staff for some time. So what she would do is she would come in, basically every day, Monday through Sunday, and she would assist with cleaning rooms and any job she could within her scope, because we had to rebuild that department. People just left, it was scary. So for her, it was really all about just serving wherever she could and making sure that everybody felt supported and that no job was something she couldn't do. So it was pretty impactful. I remember that very clearly early on. Tim Nosler, he is also a nursing home administrator, and his community is in Harlan, Iowa, a very small town in Iowa, about 50 miles away from Omaha, Nebraska. So Tim says that the management team who weren't sick, or when they came back from having COVID, We worked nonstop for 5 straight weeks, including the weekends. They did a lot of hand-in-hand things with the staff. I mean, it was, you wore scrubs, you delivered trays, you were there early morning until late at night, just pushing through, just getting the job done. They served residents in their rooms, cleaned. He assisted with screening staff, meaning to come into the building, and also assisted with testing of residents and staff. And I want to talk for a minute about after. So after they had COVID in their building for about 5 weeks, it cleared up, so they didn't have anything in December and January. So I was able to go and visit in January, just last month. And the feel among the teams now, after they've faced this together, it's special. Most people are really just appreciative. They're working together really well. Problems before COVID aren't really problems now. People do tend to get along better. It's really about the residents. It's not about anything else when you come to work. So that's been some of the silver lining we've seen through this. All right, from Dawn Patton. She's one of our administrators there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. What she was talking about is that the pandemic provided opportunities to be a servant leader, meeting with staff, meeting with her own directors, planning and implementing change, working with the staff on the front line to do as much as possible for them so that they didn't feel alone. One of the things that stands out is, in these situations, we have to isolate residents if they had COVID or what have you, or if we didn't know. So before you entered a room, you had to put on an N95 mask, goggles, or a face shield, a gown. And so I'm talking about a surgical gown, isolation gown. Best example I can give for those who don't work in healthcare is those Tyvek suits, the white Tyvek suits with the zipper, kind of like that. And you would have to go in, make sure you're caring for the resident as you always would. And then before you leave, all of that garb would have to come off except for the mask. And then you'd step outside, sanitize, change the mask, do all those things, and go through that again into every room. And some of our locations have 100+ nursing home beds, 60+ assisted living units. So, for Dawn, it was really important to be there side by side and serving those residents and staff any way she could to make it just as not easy, but just to face that together, not alone. Okay, so let's talk about some fun things. So our residents, our organization has really embraced technology. We are very proud of our use of technology throughout our system. And one thing that we had even prior to COVID is our Eversound headphones. And this product was extremely beneficial before COVID. And now, and through COVID, so for the last almost 12 months, we're figuring out ways that we can use this that we didn't before. So the picture on the right side gives us a couple of residents who are inside a location, inside a building in Albert Lee, Minnesota. And on the outside is a family there with grandkids. And the tiny microphone that you can see the gentleman holding goes into a transmitter that communicates to all those headphones you can see that everybody's wearing, so that they're able to have a conversation through that glass, and honestly, the quality of the sound is amazing, and people who cannot hear can hear with these. It's awesome. So we were very blessed, and we continue to be very blessed with that and the way we've been able to use that technology for us. On this part of the screen where the residents are sitting in a large space, we're still trying to find ways to do things socially distanced, of course, but these residents watching a movie together, listening to music together 6 feet apart, but they're using those headphones so they can all enjoy the same thing together. This example is pretty cool too. So again, as a reminder, being a servant leader is really about setting the vision and goal for the team members and then supporting them as they figure out ways to serve our residents. So one way that our campus right outside Milwaukee, Wisconsin, they figured out how to use their internal TV channel for virtual exercise classes. You know, we do a lot of physical fitness in all of our locations, and this campus has about 60 to 70% participation in their fitness classes. And so one of our instructors came up with, she was going to stand in the multipurpose room and project the wellness classes to the residents who were safe to participate. So that's what they've been doing. And it's an idea that we have shared across our system. So again, just a great way to show that, staff, team members are coming up with really awesome ideas to meet the needs of our residents. Okay, so this is a really fun piece of technology as well. It's called Rendeavor. It's a virtual reality system. And for us, it helps our residents during this time of a pandemic. It helps them to go places they can't go right now. You know, you're able to travel all over the world with this tool, and we have been blessed to have this product and also to have people who have embraced it and use it daily with our residents. So we aren't stuck inside. That's been very difficult for our residents. So we had our staff on the right side, that's them. On this side here, that's them being trained in on how to work it. And then this side here is our wellness director and a couple of residents traveling together. So it's really cool, cleanable. And again, just another tool in our toolkit to meet our residents' needs. Okay, so just a couple of things that I wanted to share for success. In these times, it's like sometimes you just get beat down. So we need to celebrate the things that we can, anytime that we can. And what this is in the red circle, red oval, is our overall rating for our nursing home quality. And so it says CMS 5-star rating. What that stands for is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. So this is a federal program that monitors our performance using health inspection, staffing, and quality measures set forth. So the one big thing about this is public knowledge. So when we achieve high scores, or it's really important for us to share that and be very much aware of that, because that's how the public can view us. So we're proud to say that during this time, we achieved 4 out of 5 stars for our overall rating in our nursing homes. And we're proud of that, because you can even see the trend, going back to 2016, we were at 3.5, 2017, 3.3. So even though facing a pandemic, we hit one of our highest 5-star ratings as an organization. So again, proud of the team for doing what they're doing. We also surveyed our residents during this time. I mean, again, it's so important to know how our residents are feeling, how they perceive us. Are we helping them feel safe during this unprecedented time? So one of the questions that we had come up with was, do you feel safe during the pandemic with the guidelines in place? And you can see, so many said yes, and there wasn't a large percentage of no's, and I'm grateful for that. That shows that we're really trying and we're meeting their expectations, and that is very, very, very important to us. Okay, so what do we need to grow in. I mean, obviously with COVID, we did lose some residents to COVID. It's a reality, and it was not a good time. And so we need to make sure that we do build our census, and be aware of how we can do this in the time of a pandemic. You know, some folks are nervous to move into congregate living settings. It's scary. So how can we as an organization focus on improving our census and help those folks with their fears? So that's one of the big areas we're focusing on right now. We did have some team members leave us, you know, during COVID. And so we're working hard to fill open positions, but also continue to provide a good working environment, you know, offering the vaccine. That's really important. We want to show that we're experts in, you know, in being ready for COVID now. You know, we have emergency preparedness supplies, we have processes in place. It's important. And then we have to figure out, hey, is there anything more we need to do to serve people in the community? Should we be looking at different ways to operate? We're discussing those types of things too, because we want to make sure that we help those in the community. Okay, this is a big one for us, is how are our residents and staff doing after this time? You know, and it's not technically over, pandemic's not over, but how are our team members doing? You know, they did see a lot of loss. They probably dealt with an unbelievable amount of things at home and still came to work. So how did we stay in tune with the residents and staff? We made sure that our chaplains were available. We're blessed to have chaplains at every location that we have. We made sure that our employees had an assistance program. We gave days off when we could, when people needed it. We made sure to listen to them and to cry with them, to make sure that we acknowledge grief, and that we talk about things, slowing down enough to appreciate the small good things that still happen. So that's a lot of what we've been doing with our residents and with our staff. Some of our team members, you know, faced loss at home. They dealt with being limited in their own home because they didn't want to potentially expose loved ones, their kids, their parents, those types of things. It was very hard. But I think what was really, really cool in much of this is the resiliency of people. You know, we still found ways to laugh. We still found ways to enjoy each other. So it was really trying to stay positive and keep moving forward and trying to motivate people in any way that we could. Okay, so I have talked a ton. I really want to hear from people who are listening. Does anybody have anything that they want to share that is relevant to what we're discussing right now? I'd love to hear.
So feel free, everyone, to either speak in the chat by typing your question or your comment, or certainly speak right up. We're interested in hearing what you all have to say.
I had a question for you, and thank you so much for sharing this. It's so relevant right now. And so I hear a mix of resiliency and using a strength perspective. As a nurse and social worker, I'm like, yes.
That's great.
And I do research in aging, so this is really of interest. And yet you're striving, you're going through a very difficult time with COVID. So you said that you helped your team along and did some debriefing. Did you have regularly scheduled debriefing by social workers, and I don't know whether you have social workers at your facility, but how did that look like? And I'm just
Sure.
wondering.
Awesome question. So in the very beginning, Bonnie, what we realized was nobody's been through this before, including us.
Yeah.
So we needed to provide a structured connection, phone call with each community, with the key leaders in those communities. And then we developed a very specific agenda, you know, on, I mean, just things like, you know, any media crisis, any residents with a fever, screening tools, policies, procedures, all those things, so that we could, I guess, make it bite-sized so that we could tackle those things. And we kept those daily calls with every community for about 9 months.
Wow.
And then slowly, based on what was going on in their community, based on their whether they were an outbreak or not, you know, and then slowly backed that off. What I learned during some of that time is that we did have, like, the chaplains, you know, it was more one-to-ones, but to reach out to those folks and to say, hey, how are you doing? How are we all doing? You know, is there anything we need to talk about? Anything we need to cry about? So I think we did okay, but I believe we can always do better with that. You know, you have to stay in tune to people and their behaviors, and if anything is different, you know, what can we do to help you? We see you're not smiling as much. Is there something going on? That type of thing.
I think you made some a salient point of, this is the first time we've gone through this.
Right. For anybody. Yeah.
We don't have a manual for this. So bravo to you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you for sharing your story. I think the pandemic has put us all in so many different silos. And unless we have a direct connection to someone in a rehab or nursing facility, we have our own kind of ideas and conclusions of what life is like. And you have just presented such a picture where of dedication of the team members in these facilities, and then thinking outside the box to provide really engaging activities that, you know, are as close to life as they can be. So my hat is off to you. And I so appreciate hearing the story, because now I walk away with a totally different idea of what life is like. And it just fills my heart. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for saying that. Hey, Matt, you're out there. I know you are. Do you have something you want to ask or talk about?
Well, first question is, hearing all the things you do, when do you sleep?
All right. That's funny. In the beginning, we didn't a lot, but that's kind of how it is, you know, and that's okay, because we needed to serve others. Like, we had to be there for people. It's just how it is.
Yeah. One thing, on a more serious and curious, because one thing I've noticed with ABHM, you guys have been over communicating, like, what's going on in the communities. Is just would love to just hear your thoughts on that, because I've seen other providers not do that. It's almost been like, you know, I think your transparency has been great from like an outside observation perspective. If you have any like thoughts you wanted to share on that, and maybe it just kind of fits in with the servant leadership mentality.
Right. Cool. Thank you. That's a great question. So we start early on, found that, you know what, it is going to be important to be as transparent as possible, because we might not have all the answers, but we're going to work through it together. And I think that was our mission right away. And then recently with the vaccine, it was important for us to pull together a subject matter expert group. So what I did was We found a geriatrician that works with one of our communities. We found an independent consultant pharmacist, and we had an administrator and a director of nursing, myself, and a director of clinical. And we came together as soon as we heard about the vaccine. What's our plan? How can we over communicate? How can we promote the vaccine? How can we how can we alleviate fear so that we can just try to move forward and get through this together? And so that group really helped us push for communication and just doing better. So I found that to be really important. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate that a lot.
Of course.
Shanna, I loved your use of technology. I think that's pretty cool that you guys were already kind of ahead of the curve with that, and you already had some of that technology in place and then adapted the ways that you used it, because I know a lot of us have seen, for those of us who aren't in the industry or don't have family members who are residents in those types of facilities, we just see what we see on the news. And a lot of times it's the holding up of the signs and windows and just the nonverbal communication. So this is really cool that your facility allowed that, that important communication that kept your residents from being so isolated or feeling isolated, and being able to communicate on a regular basis with their family members. I think that's just the neatest thing. And I think I'm hoping that more facilities are taking advantage of the technology that you have. I think I know when we went through the dry run of the program earlier this week, I thought that was the neatest thing, because we just don't see that in the news, and it's not something that's shared. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And honestly, we have been blessed, I think, to find the right partners, to work with. Actually, Matt, who's on, works with Eversound as one of the co-founders, and we met a few years ago. Gosh, I don't know how many years ago. Anyways, and their product is amazing and allowed us to do so much. And so because we had already embraced that, finding different ways to use it and keeping it clean it kind of like just worked. It transitioned, and they helped us. I mean, it's just fantastic. And any way we can embrace technology to make it better for our residents, we will, definitely.
Yeah. And the virtual reality piece of it too is really cool too. Just to feel less isolated. A lot of us think when we see that virtual reality technology, it's always associated with, in my world, children and video games, and not so much a door to the outside for, just like you were saying before, they can take a walk through their community, and they can travel to different places just by using that technology. And kind of having that escape even for just a little while in an afternoon.
Definitely.
And just to comment on the technology side, and yeah, we feel totally grateful to have worked with ABHM for a few years now. And I still remember when we met, it was in Minnesota in February, which, talk about times to visit Minnesota. But and it's been a two-way street. And so it was actually ABHM was one of the first communities we saw that adapted our group package to help facilitate safe visits. And that inspired us to create a new package. So it's really a two-way street. So we feel totally grateful to work with the awesome team at ABHM, and really just cool to see how their thinking, their creativity, their resiliency is really launched to help even communities outside of their own portfolio, because I think we're in like 1,000 communities now, which is just crazy. So thank you.
Sean, I have a question relative to the loneliness and isolation that seniors feel in the place of COVID-19, but just sometimes in their daily living, and in the facilities that you are a leader. What are some of the pieces about loneliness and isolation that you see have really been hit hard, harder than normal during COVID? And kind of a follow-up question to that is, it seems to be just constant grief that your residents are feeling, the grief of missing out on activities, of missing out on seeing residents, on seeing family members themselves not able to visit. Can you speak to us a little bit about how you and your staff have looked at those particular issues? Here at the college, we have this establishment of an Institute for Integrative Aging, lots of different activities that have all gone virtual. They were supposed to be on campus and they're all virtual. And that's a different climate. So can you speak to that a little bit and what you've experienced?
Sure, I can. I wanted to figure out where to start. So in the beginning, and I'm gonna just say before even COVID, there are residents and who maybe don't have a lot of loved ones that come to visit. They don't. So our team, we're family to them, and that's very, very, very important. And so, we offer that socialization during dining. Hey, what are you eating today? Well, the vegetables are too hard or they're too soft. And then, or it would be that hug that you don't get, for many loved ones. So the staff would be that person. And then with COVID, we have all these restrictions. We have, the PPE that must be worn. So it's hard to see people smile, which I found very difficult. It's hard to read, that. So when you walk down the hall, it's like you want to smile, and you do, of course, you still smile, but people can't see it. Anyways, so we saw a lot more isolation, first of all, because we were told we had to, we needed to restrict movement around the building, especially if we had COVID in the building. You were in your room. That's it. So that was very hard. We had residents pass away, their friends passed away, their loved ones passed away. But I have to tell you that while all that stuff is really terrible, we tried to find ways to keep the residents engaged. We did virtual family feud, virtual bingo, hallway karaoke. Just those types of things to still reach out to people and be a part of the things that they love to do, because that's what we had. And, how could we make people's favorite foods and at least get it to their room? Those things mattered. But again, it's also very much, if I know I now have a nurse in the group. So, we needed to make sure we were assessing appropriately too. What's this person's weight? Are they losing weight? We had to make sure our exercise program was offered one-on-one, because lack of movement and getting out and about meant, hey, we're not, we might see some decline in physical functioning. So as we continued to move through this, a lot of things became one-on-one. So we had staff going room to room doing resident council. We had competitions still going on, just on an individual basis, which resident could do the most this. Any community that had any connections with schools and those types of things, we still, like residents this month are making Valentines for the school across the street. They still are having gymnastics kids come outside of the building in Colorado, although I don't know if it would happen this month, but last month, they had them dancing outside still. So I feel like we are staying in tune with that isolation and things, but really trying to bring things to those residents. Now, as we've had the vaccine in place for a little while, we're waiting with the CDC and health departments to determine, okay, when can we start doing a little more? So we're dining, but we're dining in very small groups, 6 feet apart, and slowly working back in those activities with small groups. Karaoke with surgical masks is hard, but I have done it. We have done it at one of our communities. So it was fun. But it's like those things, that you have to still get excited about, and you have to remember that that stuff is fun too. And then let me see, what was the second part of your question, Joy?
Well, I was just kind of concerned just about the grief piece, and you've pretty much addressed it, but it just ingrained every one of us who's living through this pandemic has
Mhm.
some sort of grief,
Mhm.
some so tragic because of the loss of someone, but others just the missing out on normacy, of life.
Yes. Okay. And I do have one just additional piece to add to that. I did we do a phone call, a group wellness and lifestyles call with our directors of those departments every month. And the most recent call was just this past week. This is Monday. And one of the directors asked the group, "Are you struggling to get residents out of their rooms now?" So for so long, people have been in their rooms and not going out. So now we're trying to battle against that, to get people out again, that it's okay to come out and let's try a couple of things together. So that was an interesting perspective. I got to be honest, I didn't even think of that for a minute, but of course that would happen
Of course, yeah.
for some people. So really it's the one-to-ones with the chaplain and social workers and making sure we're very aware of how our residents are doing.
Thank you. Can you speak to your students too, and how the courses that you teach and the students that you have, how are they reacting to this profession that they've selected and perhaps will be working in?
Yeah, so that's been interesting because a lot of students' papers that come back or the work that they're doing does revolve around what would we do during, in this pandemic? How would we implement a personal protective equipment program? How much supply do we have on hand? What's our usage? And then, they've talked a little bit about how COVID has impacted them as well. So I'm definitely seeing it in a lot of the discussions. I'm seeing it in people's papers. A lot of the students that I work with, they're working adults. So they are facing COVID themselves. They're working in that field right now, facing it and doing some of the things that I just shared with what our administrators are doing. So definitely a topic of interest for sure. What other questions are out there? Anybody else have anything they want to talk about or a story they want to share?
We have a quiet, shy group this afternoon. There you go. Go
I
ahead.
won't be shy.
Okay,
Everybody.
I love that.
So, Joanne, you talked about loneliness and addressed the isolation being in the room, and then the residents staying in their room and how to get them out. So I'm wondering how confident are the residents in the vaccine? Because as an older adult, I've had my first one, I'm waiting for my second one, and I'm teaching online. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. I gotta tell you, to be honest, I read up on the vaccine, but I've never been through a pandemic like this. So it's a little bit, still not totally convinced. And I know that's my mind playing games on me, but so I'm wondering, are you coming up against that also with your residents going, yeah, I've had the vaccine, but I prefer to stay in my room?
Yeah. In a couple of our independent living settings, yes, they're making that choice to still limit interaction. Our compliance rate, sorry, I don't like that word. Our vaccination rate across our system for our residents is over 80%.
Right.
our staff compliance is over 50%, which is decent, you know, because the nursing home average, I think, is like 37.5% for staff. And I think it's like 77% for nursing home residents. So I would say based on that and based on residents' excitement about it, they're feeling pretty good. They really are. Now they're more like, okay, when can my family come in? When can I go out and do this and this and this? You know, it's pretty, it's something.
Yeah, good. I wonder how the effect of being in our bubble so long, how much has that impacted our cognition and our habits? And how much do we have to focus on getting people to, I've discussed this with my social work students, what is our focus? I teach a healthcare class in social work, and how do we get our clients to come back together and rejoin? And I think that's going to be a process. We've taught them how to go into a bubble. Now we have to teach them how to get back out of the bubble. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I think with kindness and moving slow
Mhm.
and being supportive, that's the best I think we can do. It's unknown. So we just have to try our best to work through it.
Sorry, I feel like I'm asking too many questions.
You're not, and they're great questions, super, super fun. I'm just grateful, so, yeah. Does anybody have any questions on, you know, the types of tests that are out there, the accessibility of testing or anything like that for long-term care? That's interesting. I just didn't know.
Do you mean testing? What kind of testing? Share with me. Are you talking about
Sure.
cognitive, brain health, things like
I'm sorry,
that?
COVID-19 testing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be great to know.
Okay, so
Yeah.
really quick, it's been pretty amazing. You know, initially we had initially we had, you know, state labs and those types of things that they would drop off supplies. We would do the nasopharyngeal testing, which is where the swab goes all the way up this way, and like some people say, tickle your brains. But then we started getting testing little Abbott cards, and they're very small swabs that just go in each nostril for about 5 seconds each time. And those results we know within 15 minutes. So, you know, the federal government actually started giving those to nursing homes and assisted livings across the nation. We were also blessed with 2 different types of testing machines. So again, you had the kits, you could do your own swabs in the nasal cavity. It was a processing time of 15 minutes and you'd have results. So I think we definitely had some good tools to identify and to stay on top of, you know, where we were at with any COVID spread in our building, or if we had anybody who was symptomatic, instead of just presuming them positive, which is the way it was in the beginning. We were able to test and know. So that really helped us, you know, kind of get ahead of it a little bit. So.
How did you deal with the fear, you know, once it was known perhaps that there was an outbreak or that there were a few residents that were tested positive? I would imagine certainly it was very, very hard to contain the fear within your residential group.
Yeah. Yeah, it was hard. So we had one of our communities that had an outbreak in their nursing home, and they made it, when I say it this way, I mean, they went so many months, probably from March to September, where they didn't have COVID in their building at all. And then it snuck in with one resident that had moved in from the hospital. And so it was very scary. I mean, in the beginning it was, okay, we need, you know, remember your process in place. Remember, you know, here's what we do when this happens, you know, hand washing works, PPE works, you know, we have to stick with these things that we know process and that it's going to work, you know, but we also have to audit and monitor compliance for that, because sometimes we get so nervous, you know, what do I put on first? You know, do I put on my mask first, or do I put on these gloves? I mean, so it's making sure we're out there side by side with folks to saying, hey, you're doing it right, or hey, let's just do this first. So I actually went on site at that location in Wisconsin when they jumped from, I would say, I think it was like 20 residents, and we ended up having like 14 more within a couple days. And we couldn't figure out how, you know, was it on a surface that people touched? It was very scary. So it was a matter of focusing on what we could control and trying to keep a positive environment, you know, supporting people in the different ways that they dealt with things, you know, whether it be prayer, whether it be crying, whether it be, you know what, go ahead and work for 4 more hours, you know, or take the day. So, you know, being right there with the staff was really important, to be consistent, you know, and doing whatever they told me to do. I would just help them do it, and we would get through. So that's how we worked through it. Yeah, that's how we did it.
Thank you, Shanna. Just amazing, your work. And you certainly are a hero on the front lines, helping so many. We're very proud of you to be a part of the St. Joseph's College community for so many years. Your undergraduate work, your master's work, and now teaching for us. It's just really wonderful to get to know you through this process. I will ask that folks consider what questions they might have for Shanna. She certainly will entertain us for another 5 minutes or so with your really important work that you do. It's been just enlightening to hear everything. Any other comments or points that folks would like to make? Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. I do want to tell you that this Front Row with the Faculty series is going to continue, of course. It is held basically the second and fourth Wednesday of each month here at 4 o'clock. Next month, kind of following our next time on the 24th of February, following up on this subject is a topic about resilience through this time. And one of our faculty members, Sue Ellen Nadeau, has asked our honorary scholar in residence, Donato Tremuto, to speak with her on that subject. So for all of you that are here, I hope you can join us again in a few weeks. And Shanna, just thank you so much from all of us at St. Joseph's College for everything that you do. And everyone in attendance, thank you once again for being with us. Be well, stay safe.